You think your home is the safest place in the world. But what happens? When your very shelter becomes a trap? When you're home alone? Are you really alone? Tonight I'm going to share with you 4 true stories. No ghosts, no imagination, just people. And what they're willing to do when they believe no one is watching. Turn off the lights, put on your headphones, and don't forget to lock the door. Story 1. The Man Upstairs. I grew up in a remote countryside area of Michigan. Our house was nestled deep in the woods and surrounded by fields so far from any neighbors that even if you screamed, no one would hear you. We lived on over 7 acres of land, with a big shed in the yard where we kept the lawnmower, the ATV, and all kinds of random stuff. I was only 13 when this happened. My parents would often leave me home alone on weekends when they went out. They trusted me because I was independent and knew how to take care of myself. Honestly, I wasn't afraid of anything until that day. That afternoon, I was playing Grand Theft Auto Vice City on our old PS2 in the living room when I suddenly heard a loud metallic bang like something heavy had been slammed against something else. It came from the backyard. I immediately shut off the game and rushed to each window trying to see what was going on. Everything looked quiet until I looked toward the shed. Its heavy metal door was wide open. I felt a chill run through me. That door was always heavy. The wind couldn't have opened it by itself. I ran to grab my dad's hunting rifle from the cabinet, my hands shaking but trying to stay calm. I stepped outside and shouted, "Who's in there?" No answer. Just the wind rustling through the tall grass. I wasn't dumb enough to go inside the shed. Instead, I slammed the door shut and locked it tight. Then I ran back to the house and locked every door. I sat by the window, eyes fixed on the shed, waiting. My heart was pounding and my mind was racing through a dozen scenarios. I called my dad, but he didn't pick up. This was before texting was common, so I left him a voicemail. A little while later, I heard something clicking sounds from the ceiling, like footsteps. Someone was moving above me. I was on the first floor. The house had 2 stories, and I was supposed to be alone. I picked up the gun again. My heart was about to explode. No yelling, no noise. If someone was up there, I didn't want them to know I knew. I crept upstairs and flipped on the hallway light. There were 5 doors, all of them shut. One was the bathroom, the other 4 were bedrooms. I crouched down and peered under my parents' bedroom door. And that's when I saw 2 bare feet, standing still facing into the room. There's no way to describe that feeling. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might burst. My body froze. Fear wasn't imaginary anymore. It was right in front of me. I backed away, bolted downstairs, locked myself in the bathroom, tried calling Dad again, no answer. Hands trembling, I dialed 911. I whispered to the dispatcher that someone was inside my house. While I was still on the line, I heard footsteps coming down the stairs. Slow, deliberate. They stopped right outside the bathroom door. And then, a raspy male voice said, "What's up, kid?" Just 4 words. But I remember that voice to this day. I screamed, "I'm calling the police. I have a gun. Get out now." Right then, I turned on speakerphone. The 911 dispatcher yelled, "Hello, are you okay?" The man tried turning the doorknob. It was locked. And after what felt like an eternity, I heard him walk away. Then the back door slammed shut. The police arrived later. They searched the entire house. No one was there. They asked if I had somewhere safe to go, and I ended up staying with my uncle that night. It wasn't until I sat in his car that I realized something. When I ran out to the shed earlier, I had left the door unlocked. He could have walked right in while I was outside. He might have been inside the house with me from the very beginning, standing upstairs, watching me from above, waiting for me to fall asleep, or something worse. The thought that someone had been inside your home quiet hidden is something that still haunts me to this day. Story 2. The voice that calls my name. That week, my parents were away on an anniversary trip, and I was left in charge of the house. I was 18, the only one living in that home tucked deep in the woods. It sat at the end of a long dirt road, isolated and dead silent. That day, I stopped to get gas at a station near town when a black Jeep Cherokee pulled up next to me. A man with a goatee got out, greeted me politely, and asked for directions to the highway. I pointed the way and he scribbled something on a piece of paper. Then he asked for my name. I said, "I'm Kate." He smiled and replied, "That's a beautiful name." I didn't think much of it. But when I turned onto the long road home, that Jeep was still behind me. He was going in the opposite direction of where I told him to go. Maybe he forgot. Or maybe he was never planning to go anywhere. I locked the doors carefully. But that night, as I stepped outside to drive and meet some friends, I heard footsteps coming from the woods. Then a whisper. "Kate." I froze. Tried convincing myself it was a neighbor. But who calls out someone's name from the darkness without even introducing themselves? I told my parents. They said it was probably someone I knew. I didn't mention the Jeep. The next night, when I walked to my car again, the voice came back. Closer, clearer. "Kate." This time I didn't wait. I ran straight back inside and called 911. The police showed up, flashed their lights through the trees and looked around the house but found nothing. They told me, "Call us again if it happens." If it happens, I thought. What if it happens tomorrow night? And of course, it did. After a late shift at work, I stepped out of my car, and from the woods came that same voice. Raspy, cocky. "Kate, don't call the cops again, cutie." I screamed. "You're seriously messed up." Then I slammed the door shut and called 911 a second time. That night I packed a bag and went to stay at my best friend Alex's house. When I got there, I scanned the area carefully before getting out. Everything seemed fine. I sat down in the driver's seat for a second to grab my phone, and then a masked face appeared right outside my window. He yanked the door handle and smashed his elbow against the glass. I couldn't even breathe. My chest tightened, hands shaking violently. I hit the gas, sobbing, calling Alex as I drove. Later, police came to my house again. This time they were more serious. But he was already gone. I never saw that black Jeep again. But deep down I knew he wasn't just watching me. He was hunting me. Story 3. The smile behind the curtain. I was 16 at the time, home alone on a weekend night. It was late, and I was deep into a game of StarCraft on my computer when the doorbell suddenly rang. I ran to the door. Through the glass, I saw an elderly woman standing outside. She was smiling sweetly, both hands hidden behind her back. I asked through the glass, "Can I help you?" She said she needed to borrow a phone. Her voice was soft and gentle, but her eyes, they didn't blink. And that smile, it never changed, like it was stuck on her face. I politely declined and told her the public library was just a few blocks away. She gave a strained chuckle and replied, "Turning away an old lady asking for help. That's quite rude, dear." I closed the door slowly, but she didn't move. That smile stayed frozen. Her eyes locked on mine. A few minutes later, I heard tapping at the window, steady and sharp, like metal scraping across the glass. I didn't dare pull the curtain aside, but I knew she was still out there. The next time the doorbell rang, a man appeared. He said he was her son, claimed she was confused and had wandered away from home. I asked, "How did you know she came here?" He simply smiled. I followed her trail. Then he asked if he could come inside and take a look around. I said no and pointed him toward the backyard. He thanked me, turned around, but never showed up out back. I watched from the window. Nothing. No sign of him or her. That night I went to bed early, until the scraping sound came back. Metal against glass. I pulled back the curtain. She was there, still smiling, holding a kitchen knife. Her head tilted slightly to the side like she was waiting to see what I'd do. I dropped the curtain, curled up under the blanket. No phone, no one to call. Just waited, in silence, until the doorbell rang 4 times in a row, and then nothing. A silence so deep it felt like death. The next morning I called my dad. He said, "You did the right thing. Never open the door. Not even for those who seem weak. I still have dreams about her sometimes. That same smile, and the sound of the knife, tapping against the glass." Story 4. The man looking for Melissa. Last week, my best friend Cody asked me to watch his Pomsky while he was out of town. It was a small dog, loud and yappy, but honestly pretty cute. Around 10 p.m. that night, the dog started growling and barking wildly toward the back door. I figured it just needed to go outside for a bathroom break. But as I reached for the door, my hand barely inches from the lock. The doorknob turned on its own. I froze. Through the thin mesh screen, a face came into view. A man in his 50s, messy hair, filthy clothes, eyes twitching. He looked straight at me. Not scared, not surprised, just staring. I asked, "Who are you?" He replied, "Is Melissa home?" Melissa is Cody's little sister, barely in her 20s. This man looked homeless, possibly drunk, and nothing about him suggested any real connection to her. I said firmly, "No one by that name lives here. You need to leave. There are cameras everywhere." He gave a faint smile, then said, "You sure about that?" I stood silent. He turned and calmly disappeared into the night. When I asked Cody, neither he nor his sister had ever seen or heard of the man. And the thing that chilled me the most wasn't just that he tried the back door. It was his eyes, so calm, so familiar, like he'd been here before, like he knew Melissa, and he'd come back this time, to find her no matter what. Every story you just heard has one thing in common. They all happen when the victims believed they were completely alone. We always feel safest when we shut the door, lock the world outside, and tell ourselves we're secure. But in the dark, in the sound of knocking, in the scrape of fingernails on glass, sometimes the scariest question isn't, who's out there? It's, when did they get in? If you've ever experienced something like this, don't be afraid to share your story. And if tonight, you hear someone calling your name from the other side of the door, don't answer.